Good Tuesday morning. It is October 7th, 2025. What a day. We're going to take a look at our weather top headlines on today's edition of the Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. I'm broadcasting from Southeast Virginia, serving Hampton Roads, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, down into Northeast North Carolina. We've got the whole region covered. But when you tune into the Weather Desk, our top weather headlines, they're not just from here in Hampton Roads. We take a look at stuff going on across the country, around the world, as we have a couple international stories today, and sometimes we even look into outer space and climate-related stories. So lots to go over. Let's get into our headlines for today. And we're going to start off with what I was terming smoke on the water. We had a very sad situation in Portsmouth with a house fire, but I say smoke on the water because the flames were producing all this smoke. There's a little temperature inversion, and we had some smoke kind of pinned in around the Elizabeth River for a while. Now we're waiting for Jerry, and if you've been watching the tropics, you know the next name up on the list is Jerry. You remember we had Umberto, we had Imelda. Next one up, Jerry, and we'll see. And after Jerry comes Karen. So we'll see how things are going in the tropics, not just on the Atlantic side, but also we have Priscilla out there, a Cat 2 hurricane in the Eastern Pacific. All right, after we tackle the tropics, we're going to take a look at a tornado that was deemed an EF5. I believe it's the first one we've had in the United States since 2012. It's been a while, or the last 12 years. It's been a while since we've had an EF5, and we're going to talk about that, where it occurred and what they have now figured out about that tornado, why they reclassified it to an EF5. Then we've got that update on the rescue efforts around Mount Everest, and it's really an interesting scenario. There were hundreds of people. These were not climbers that were trying to summit Mount Everest. These were people that were just hiking around certain levels of the mountain that got caught in a pretty nasty snowstorm without provisions. So we're going to talk about what's happening with the rescue efforts there. Stay tuned for more on that. There's been flooding in Bulgaria. We'll update you on that. We've got images and kind of a look back on last night's supermoon. It was gorgeous. We'll talk about the next one upcoming. We have two more coming this year. And then turtles headed to the sea from right here in Hampton Roads. Just adorable. If you love babies, if you love sea turtles struggling to make it to the water, we're going to show you how some local turtles did coming up. All right, let's start off, though, by taking a look at that house fire. And you can see there's still smoke coming up. But early this morning, that smoke was intense and it was dark. We had some really, really intense flame action going on, and then the smoke was incredible as parts of Hampton Roads woke up to the smell of smoke. Look at those flames. Earlier, that was captured from our tower cam, and you can see how the smoke wafted out. Now, it's interesting. We have south winds, and we are looking at this time lapse from our position. Our camera here is looking south across the Elizabeth River. And what you're seeing here is that smoke plume actually started to work towards us. Take a look, and again, I hope that we have the time lapse one more time, and this is the first time I'm looking at this with you. As we zoom in, that's when the flames were so intense. There was so much heat. The heat rising off that was able to break through that inversion layer. As the firefighters got a handle on the flames and it wasn't quite as hot, that smoke started to fan out and was really kind of trapped a little lower in the atmosphere due to that inversion that we had, and that's why we started to smell all the smoke here at the studios. Right now, again, the situation much better, but it's a really sad story. Beautiful historic home in Portsmouth. We understand, we got word from our reporting crews in the field there, Jeremiah Beatty, that it was in a family for 5 generations. That home was owned there. So it's just heartbreaking to see that. But that's what was happening this morning there on the Elizabeth River over in Portsmouth. Right now, 69 sunshine. Winds are very, very light, calm in fact, but we've generally seen south and southeast winds. All right, we're going to take a look at a coastal storm that is going to develop later on. So as we take a look here, you can see for Sunday we have what we are calling a cautionary weather impact alert. So what's going on here? The potential exists for an area of low pressure to develop off the southeast coast. Couple models handle it differently. So this is not like a high confidence absolutely going to happen. pretty confident something's going to come off the southeast coast. But how much it impacts our area, that's where we still have some wiggle room as we get closer to the weekend. There is the potential for heavy rain, wind, and perhaps tidal issues once again. If this low is closer to the coast, we're going to see more of that northeast, stronger east-northeast wind. That's going to push water into the lower part of the bay, and we could get some more tidal flooding. You definitely want to stay weather aware as we get closer to the weekend. Take a look at a couple of the models here. This is going to be a look at the GFS, which is the American model, and the Euro. You hear us talk a lot about these global models. Well, let me just start by saying this little yellow, what looks like a bullseye right here, this is the GFS, or the American model's handling of what should become Tropical Storm Jerry and eventually Hurricane Jerry if it continues to strengthen. Right now, and I'll show you it in a minute, Jerry's still off to the east-southeast, but this is looking ahead to Friday. So by that time, the GFS brings Jerry up kind of into this area. You'll notice the Euro doesn't really do much with Jerry, so that's kind of interesting to note. Keep that in the back of your head. We'll take a look at where this thing is right now, coming up in a few minutes. But what I want to show you is how things develop here off the southeast coast. You see how both the American model in yellow and the Euro in red here both develop an area of low pressure. Now, this is the tropical system. Notice how tight all those circles are. This is a tight tropical system. These are areas of low pressure, a little bit broader, larger, just kind of regular areas of low pressure. But as they tighten up and they get a little stronger, the potential is there for them to get stronger and be pretty close to the Carolina coast. The GFS, the American model here in yellow, has that low centered just to the south of Ocracoke and down around Morehead City, this area here, very close to that region. While the Euro is a little farther offshore, all right, a little farther to the east. So if the Euro is correct, Saturday night into Sunday might be really windy with some heavy rain down along the outer banks, but it doesn't extend as far north or west. If the U.S. model, the GFS, is correct, we would be in for more wind and rain, and that's the concern. Is it going to be the GFS? Is it going to be the Euro? How do these things play out? You'll notice the Euro, again, keeps it offshore. That's farther offshore, not as bad for us, while the American model really continues to ramp up the heavy rain over North Carolina and potential wind and tidal issues for us. So we're going to be watching all of this very carefully. Again, it's too early to say for sure how things play out, but there is that potential late Saturday into Sunday and Monday, and that's why we have our cautionary weather impact alert for Sunday. We'll keep you updated. Here we are ending up the first week of October. We still have the rest of October and November left in the tropical season, so time still for activity. Let's show you. The next name on the list is Jerry. After that, Karen. We have two areas we're watching right now. One area in the southern Bay of Campeche, the other area, this one, and I'm telling you, this is looking healthier from a tropical standpoint, and we're going to need to continue to watch that. Let's start off with a look at the Gulf. Northern Gulf, very quiet right now. And again, the Bay of Campeche, this is an area with about a 10% chance of development here over the next week. Caribbean's pretty quiet right now, so we can focus on this area here. Looks like we're getting some venting and an anticyclonic flow here. If you kind of look at this and kind of take the big picture, you go, okay, I see a little bit of that. High pressure aloft, low pressure near the surface. It's looking pretty tropical to me. That should become our next tropical depression, and eventually it has that 80 to 90% chance of becoming our next system here within the next couple of days, an 80% chance, 90% chance that this becomes Jerry over the next week. And again, just a 10% chance here in the southern part of the Gulf. As we take a look at the GFS, this is just one of the models, but I wanted to show you how it ramps it up. You see it's pretty intense there. There's the Lesser Antilles, the Virgin Islands here, stays just to the north and northeast of that, and then really ramps up as it turns to the north, eventually turning back. There's Bermuda, it kind of dodges that, and away it goes. That's that coastal low that just kind of comes out. So we'll have to see how things play out, but I wanted to share with you kind of the model outlooks here with two of the big global models. Now, here's the spaghetti plot. Look at all these models turning it back to the northeast before reaching it to Bermuda. So it has that recurvature of the track on this thing. Not a great threat to the U.S., but something we are going to be watching closely for you over the coming week. Now, we not only have the Atlantic Basin, but we're also keeping an eye on Priscilla over here. Look at this. This is a Category 2 hurricane at the 8 o'clock update. Maximum winds 100, gusting to 120. That was the same at 5, so didn't really change intensity, but it is forecast to maybe strengthen a little bit later today. Could see winds up to 110. Still a Cat 2 system. It then would weaken as it comes farther north, and the remnant low would work across the Baja and into the southwestern U.S. Chances of development of another system, about 70% over the coming week. So there's Priscilla, and we have potentially the next one coming after that a little bit later on. Plenty to watch in the tropics, and we will be doing that. Now, I want to remind you, here on the Weather Desk, great way to stay up on everything happening in the tropics. I do this every weekday morning at 9. But if you're able to tune in 13 News Now Plus at 8 o'clock each and every night, you can check out Hurricane Hub Live. It is a great show. Our chief meteorologist, Tim Panday, just updates you on everything in the tropics, both the Atlantic and the Pacific, and he takes a deeper dive into all of the tropical activity going on in topics. Hunter Force does it on the weekends, and Tim does it during the week. So each and every evening during the hurricane season, which runs another 7 weeks or so, and you'll find that here on 13 News Now Plus at 8 o'clock. All right, we're going to turn our attention to an updated situation here in North Dakota. What am I talking about? Well, it's a big update from the National Weather Service. The organization has taken a look at damage from what we knew was a powerful tornado around Enderlin, North Dakota, and they have upgraded the strength of that deadly tornado that struck this area to an EF5. Now, that's the most powerful rating for tornadoes, and it's the first of its kind recorded in about 12 years. Take a look. 3 people died when this twister tore through Enderlin, this area in North Dakota, back in June. It had an estimated peak wind speed of more than 210 miles per hour. The strength rating was upgraded after further analysis of the damage field the tornado left behind. It blew the bark off trees and tossed an empty tanker car about 475 feet. The twister carved out a path nearly 12 miles long, and on the ground, it was down there for about 19 minutes. So you might be asking, what exactly does an EF5 rating mean, and how common are they? Meteorologist Evan Stewart is here now to walk us through the tornado rating system.
Between 2007 and 2025, the United States has experienced thousands of tornadoes varying in intensity as classified by the Enhanced Fujita or EF scale. The Enhanced Fujita scale was implemented in 2007 and categorizes tornadoes from EF0, the weakest, all the way to an EF5, the strongest. Now, these wind speeds are estimates based on damage surveys conducted by the National Weather Service. And since 2007, over half of all tornadoes were classified as EF0. About 51.5% of all tornadoes had wind speeds between 66 and 85 miles per hour. These tornadoes tend to be weaker, doing light damage. Over a third of all tornadoes were classified as EF1 with wind speeds between 86 and 110 miles per hour. These tornadoes tend to do moderate damage, stripping roofs, overturning mobile homes, and breaking windows. Now, tornadoes rated EF2 and EF3, they're considered strong with wind speeds ranging from 111 to 165 miles per hour, and they accounted for about 11% of all tornadoes. Now, these storms can cause significant damage to structures and pose considerable risk to life and property. Now, the most violent tornadoes rated EF4 and EF5 with wind speeds exceeding 166 miles per hour are rare, comprising less than 1% of all tornadoes. Now, despite their rarity, these tornadoes are responsible for a disproportionate number of tornado-related fatalities. According to records, of all tornado deaths, 70% come from EF4 and EF5 tornadoes.
A lot of great information there, Evan. Thanks for sharing. We're going to turn our attention now overseas and to this border between Nepal and China. We're going to zoom in specifically to Mount Everest. And let me show you where Mount Everest is located right there along the border. Right now, there are more than 200 hikers still waiting to be rescued on Mount Everest. This is after a snowstorm slammed the Himalayas over the weekend. Hundreds of local villagers and rescue teams have been deployed to help with the operation. Chinese state media reports 350 people have been rescued so far after reaching a small township in Tibet on Sunday. Expedition leaders say it could take up to a week for rescuers to reach those who are still stranded. Alan Arnett, a climber and mountaineering coach, says the hikers who got stuck there, they weren't trying to summit Everest. They were set up at a campsite popular for casual hiking this time of year when this unexpected snowstorm moved in.
A lot of people, they were expecting to have fairly mild temperatures and certainly not a blizzard or torrential rain. So they probably were not as prepared as they would have been, for example, if they were actually going to go climb the mountain. If they're just going to be trekking, then they can do it in lightweight clothing and not really worry about hypothermia. But in this case, they had temperatures well below 0 Fahrenheit, extreme brutal winds. And so we're getting reports of hypothermia, frostbite, and other cold-related illnesses and health problems. So in order to be prepared for that, you've really got to understand what mountain terrain will bring. And so that also goes the same thing for the rescue teams, that they're in the same peril. And a lot of these roads and bridges have been washed out. And so that's why the 250 people, while accounted for, may not be able to reach them until the 4 or 5 feet of snow melts.
Wow. Standing at 30,000 feet high, Mount Everest is the highest mountain in the world, and it straddles the border, as I mentioned, between Nepal and China. We will keep you updated. Now we're going to turn our attention over to Bulgaria. And Bulgaria, the eastern part of the country, is drying out this morning after intense flooding. Take a look at this. The aftermath in Elenite, 4 to 8 inches of rain fell in just a few hours. That's more than triple their monthly average for Bulgaria in October, which is typically just a couple of inches. And the threat isn't over. A new storm system could bring even more rain to the region. Warnings are in place for northeast Bulgaria and eastern Romania along the Black Sea, both for later today and tomorrow. All right, that's what's happening over there. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have a look at the supermoon that rose overnight. It was spectacular. And we've got a sea turtle sighting in Virginia. We'll let you know how the baby sea turtles are doing this morning. Stay tuned. We'll have it all after the break. Welcome back, and we're back now with a look at the October supermoon. Here you can see it rising over Tijuana in Mexico overnight. This phenomenon, it happens when a full moon is closer to Earth in its orbit, making the moon look up to about 14% bigger and 30% brighter than the faintest moon of the year. This is the first of 3 supermoons to happen this year. The closest supermoon of the year is slated for November, followed by another in December. Really cool to see that. All right, we're going to take a look now. We'll turn our attention from the heavens back to the earth, and I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the severe weather or the potential for excessive rainfall across parts of the country. We're not seeing it here. We're in good shape today. You see some wet weather out to the west, and there is some intense rainfall for other parts of the country. As we take a look at the greatest potential for excessive rainfall, we'll start with this area here across most of Kentucky, southern Ohio, and West Virginia. A level 2 threat for excessive rainfall or flash flooding from Nashville back to Paducah, all the way up through Cincinnati. It includes Charleston, around the areas close to Beckley, all the way up to just south of Pittsburgh. You can see right now there are flood advisories out for parts of the area, including Evansville. I was looking at this. There's over 400,000 people under this flood advisory, which is going to run until 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central. You can see, again, a lot of folks here impacted by very intense rainfall. And this is kind of the nature of what you have in these areas with the elevated flood risk. Right now, this area is pretty dry. There are some light showers kind of out this way, but they're set up for not only excessive rainfall, but maybe some severe weather there a little bit later today as well. It's just a marginal or level 1 threat. This is the only part of the country from Santa Fe through Albuquerque down through Socorro, some of the different areas down there across the southern parts of New Mexico, also just bracing for maybe a few stronger storms. There might be a little bit of hail. Again, chance is pretty low, but it's slightly elevated, and the wind gusts, I think, would be the greatest threat. But this is the area here in New Mexico, and right now just a few light showers east of that. All right, as we take a look at our weather here in Hampton Roads, the sky is sunny. We have a beautiful morning now. Winds are calm, 69 at Norfolk International. As we take a look, rip current threat still high across Florida. For most of North Carolina's southern Outer Banks, Ocracoke, and areas farther to the south, a moderate threat, but Virginia Beach, we do not have a threat of rip currents today. In fact, it looks really good out on the water for the bay and for the ocean. You can see the winds fairly light, but a little gusty later this afternoon, up to about 20 knots. Here's our future cast, and we are going to see, again, a lot of sunshine, a few fair weather clouds as we head through the overnight and into early tomorrow. There might be a few showers off to the north. I think as we go through the day on Wednesday, some scattered wet weather potentially working through. Things will improve later Wednesday, and then into Thursday, it is going to be windy and colder. So we're going to find temperatures today very warm, lower 80s, as you can see, low to mid 80s for some of our inland areas. We did have some dense fog out around Franklin and for northeast North Carolina early this morning. Now we're going to enjoy a lot of sunshine and then maybe a few clouds later in the day. Low 80s for the peninsula, 80 at Gloucester, temperatures in the mid to upper 70s for the eastern shore. Outer Banks, upper 70s, mid 80s, Hertford and Edenton, low 80s around Elizabeth City. Feeling almost summer-like. We are into fall, but it's feeling a little bit warm. So mostly sunny, very pleasant. I just showed you all those temperatures. Winds south at about 5 to 10 miles per hour. Overnight tonight, lows near 70. Tomorrow, 76, mostly cloudy. And here's a look at the 7-day forecast. We've got some beautiful weather as we get into Thursday and Friday. Behind this cold front coming through, we're going to enjoy more sunshine. It will be breezy, cooler, upper 60s to near 70 on Friday, and then a chance for rain to develop later Saturday, and potentially with that coastal low, some rain and wind, maybe tidal issues on Sunday. One area that was not experiencing any coastal issues this morning was our oceanfront area. I want to take you down to Croatan, where right here in Hampton Roads, some folks were treated to baby sea turtles going for it, making their break from the nest there at Croatan, trying to get out to the ocean. This little guy just kind of pausing for a second and taking a look. Brian Gregory shot this, and he said, Craig, He made it. Let's give him a look here as he's trying so hard. You see the ocean there? Finally, the water, the waves. He did, in fact, make it out there. That had to feel so good for him to feel that salt water wash over him for the first time. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Weather Desk. Again, I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. You can always follow our forecast when you download the 13 News Now mobile app. Have a great one. We'll see you next time on the Weather Desk.